I didn't fake my death to escape war. I did it to expose one. When decorated soldier Caleb Whitaker resurfaces after years presumed dead, he isn't just back from the shadows. He's carrying proof of a military conspiracy so vast it threatens the foundations of the government itself. As he confronts traitors in power, ghosts from his past, and the elite forces sent to silence him, Caleb must decide what truth is worth dying for. Again. Leah Kim stared out the airplane window, the Seattle skyline shimmering beneath the dense, pearlescent clouds. Her heart drummed steadily against her ribs, a mix of anticipation and dread rising in her throat. It had been 6 years since she last set foot in her childhood home, a place packed with memories both precious and painful. She had built a life in Brooklyn, a strong career as a backend developer at a fast-growing tech startup, a circle of trusted friends, and an apartment that smelled of coffee and comfort. But the email from her mother 2 weeks ago, terse, clinical, had upended it all. Your father is sick. It's time to come home. Now, with her laptop tucked in her backpack and a guarded expression on her face, Leah stepped off the plane and into the cold, familiar air of her past. The Kim family home sat in the quiet suburbs of Bellevue, a pristine 2-story house with manicured hedges and ivy crawling the brick walls. Her brother Dylan greeted her first, arms crossed, his suit too stiff for a Saturday morning. "Didn't think you'd come," he said. Leah offered a thin smile. "Neither did I." Inside, the scent of lemon polish and aging wood greeted her. Her mother, Sung-hee, stood by the kitchen, wiping her hands on a towel, her face unreadable. "You've changed," she said. "Thinner." Leah shrugged. "Work keeps me busy." Silence fell like snow, cold and weightless. Her father was upstairs, resting. The cancer had made him hollow, her mother explained, like a tree dying from the inside. In the days that followed, old wounds reopened. Leah remembered the years of silence, the moments when her opinions were brushed aside in favor of Dylan's ambitions. Even now, he spoke with a quiet entitlement, asking about her salary and offering unsolicited advice on what she should be doing with her life. One evening, Leah overheard Dylan arguing with their parents about money, business, and expectations. Her name came up like a footnote, a whisper of obligation. She realized they hadn't called her home out of love. They needed something. But Leah was no longer the unsure girl they once knew. She'd survived New York's chaos, coded through failures, and stood her ground in rooms full of egos. When Dylan tried to coax her into investing in his failing business, she declined politely, but firmly. "You didn't call me for family," she said. "You called me for funding." The confrontation tore the veil off years of polite avoidance. Her mother scolded her for disrespect, and her father pleaded with his eyes. Leah packed her things and left that night, vowing never to return. But family, like code, had its loops and errors. What Leah didn't know was that a buried truth, long kept hidden, was about to unravel everything she thought she knew. The screech of tires on gravel startled everyone. A black Mercedes SUV pulled into the driveway of the farmhouse, kicking up dust. The old farmhouse, with its crumbling fence and rusty wind vane, seemed to hold its breath. Jameson, startled, grabbed his shotgun from beside the porch door. At his side, Elena stood stiff, her eyes narrowing. The car door opened slowly, and out stepped Caleb Whitaker. Alive. Taller, leaner, with streaks of gray in his beard and a haunted glint in his eyes, Caleb looked like a man who had crawled out of hell and walked straight into a storm. "Hello, Dad," he said, voice dry, cracked. "Elena." Jameson staggered back as if struck. You're dead." "I was supposed to be," Caleb replied, stepping forward. Elena's face remained frozen, unreadable. "You disappeared for 7 years, Caleb. We buried an empty coffin." Caleb's eyes flicked to her hand. No wedding ring. "I didn't die. I was betrayed." Jameson lowered the gun, though his hands shook. "Betrayed by who?" "You went to Afghanistan. Your unit. They said..." "They lied," Caleb interrupted, tone hard. "There was an ambush, but not from the Taliban. Someone inside orchestrated it. I was left behind, captured, tortured, forgotten. Elena finally moved, slowly walking down the steps until she stood face to face with him. Why now? Because I have proof, Caleb said, pulling a flash drive from his coat pocket. The man who orchestrated it is alive, powerful, and closer than you think. Elena's eyes widened. Who? But before he could answer, a shot rang out. Glass shattered behind them. Jameson dove and Elena pulled Caleb down. From the tree line, a man retreated into the woods. Elena! Jameson barked. Get inside! But Caleb stood up slowly, staring toward the trees. I know who it is. Tell us, Elena demanded. Heart racing. Caleb's face twisted with rage. Colonel Barrett, my commanding officer, and now head of security for Argent Corp. Jameson's mouth dropped. Argent Corp? The company buying up land across the county? More than that, Caleb said. They're funding illegal weapons transfers, laundering money through local shell companies, and eliminating threats. I was one. And you brought all this home? Elena said, anger creeping into her voice. I brought it here because this is where it started, and because the truth is buried beneath the roots of this town. I need your help. Jameson looked at his son. Not the boy he raised, not the soldier he lost, but a man hardened by betrayal, sharpened by pain. You're not alone anymore, Jameson said. But you need to tell us everything. Caleb nodded. Then you'd better sit down. This is only the beginning. A storm rolled in, thunder distant but rumbling like warning drums. Inside the farmhouse, a map was spread out across the kitchen table, marked with red X's, lines, and names. Caleb pointed. This is the old Whitaker lumber mill, Argent Corp. Bought it 5 years ago, but it's not operational. It's a front. Elena frowned. I used to play there as a kid. What are they doing inside? Arms storage. I have photos. Blueprints. They're moving weapons through underground tunnels, connected to old Prohibition-era routes. And Colonel Barrett? Jameson asked. He's coming here, Caleb said. He knows I'm alive. Tonight's warning. Shot? Just the first. Elena folded her arms. Why trust us now? Caleb's voice softened. Because I don't know who else I can trust. And because... He hesitated. Because I never stopped loving you. Elena flinched, tears briefly touching her eyes before she blinked them away. You don't get to come back from the dead and say that. I'm not asking for forgiveness, Caleb said quietly. Just a chance to fix what I couldn't, before. They were interrupted by the sound of a motorcycle pulling up outside. Jameson grabbed his gun again. Caleb moved to the window, carefully peering out. It's her, he said. Jessie. Elena's cousin? Jameson asked, confused. No, Jessie Vale, former military intel. She was the one who got me out. The door opened, and a woman, in a leather jacket, short-cropped hair, and a hard stare, stepped in. You weren't supposed to come here, Caleb. They found me anyway. Jessie glanced at the map. Then we move up the timeline. We're going in tomorrow night. Elena looked between the two. Go in where? The mill, Caleb said. We take down Barrett, burn the records, and leak the proof. You'll need help, Jameson said, standing. The sheriff's department won't touch Argent Corp. But the people in this town, many hate what's happening. Jessie nodded. Then let's light a match. Elena stepped back, heart thudding. She realized what was happening. The quiet life she'd built was about to explode. Again. And this time she wasn't sure they would survive it. The plan was simple. On paper, get in. Copy the files. Burn the rest. Get out. But nothing about Caleb's life or his return had been simple. The next evening, as twilight descended over the Missouri hills, Caleb crouched beside the old Whitaker lumber mill with Jessie. The once bustling factory now sat in eerie silence, shadows swallowing the cracks in its decaying walls. But inside, it buzzed with armed guards, high-tech surveillance, and secrets powerful enough to ruin lives. Caleb checked his watch. 9:47 p.m. Inside town, Elena was watching their backs, a radio in one hand, a burner phone in the other, parked in her car near the county access road. "Security's thin on the north end," Jessie whispered, scanning the perimeter. "Barrett's gotten cocky." "Good," Caleb muttered. "Let's cut off his head while he's still blind." They slid through a torn section of the perimeter fence and crept toward a back entrance once used for lumber deliveries. Caleb reached into his pack, pulling out a magnetic keycard, stolen from a former Argent Corp contractor who owed him his life. The lock clicked. The door eased open. They slipped inside. The interior reeked of oil and mildew. Stale air choked. The corridors, but beyond it, the distant hum of cooling servers. Down 2 flights of stairs, past the remnants of forgotten machines and rotting pallets, they reached the heart of the operation. A reinforced steel vault, glowing faintly under dim red lights. "This is it," Caleb whispered. He built his empire on the backs of soldiers. He discarded. Jessie plugged in a small drive. "Give me 90 seconds. While she copied data, Caleb scanned the walls. Rows of hard drives, maps, manifests, photos. A chill ran through him as he spotted familiar faces, soldiers from his unit. Some confirmed dead, others listed as liabilities. A sudden sound. Footsteps. Caleb signaled to Jessie. She yanked the drive free. They ducked behind a metal storage rack just as the vault door creaked open. Colonel Barrett walked in, older, heavier, but with the same air of command and evil. He was flanked by 2 guards. "Sweep the floor," Barrett growled. "I don't trust the quiet tonight." The guards began moving. Caleb's pulse thundered. One wrong move, and they were dead. Jessie mouthed, "Plan B?" Caleb nodded. As the guard neared their hiding spot, Caleb lunged, silent, precise. He struck the man in the throat and dragged him back. Jessie swept the second guard's legs and slammed a stun baton into his side. Barrett turned. Too slow. Caleb leveled a pistol at his former commander's head. "Hello, Colonel." Barrett's eyes widened. "Impossible." "Not quite," Caleb said coldly. "Surprised to see your ghost?" Barrett straightened, even with a gun to his face. "You should have stayed dead, Whitaker." "You should have stayed in prison," Caleb snapped. "But the system you rigged gave you a throne instead." Jessie waved the driver. "We've got everything. Time to go." But Barrett smiled, far too calmly. "You think you're walking out of here?" Alarms blared. Lights snapped on. Jessie cursed. "Backup's already here." Caleb grabbed Barrett and slammed him against the wall. "You're coming with us." They dragged him through the corridor, gunfire echoing behind them. Jessie tossed a smoke grenade back as they ducked into a side tunnel. One Caleb remembered from childhood. It led to an old drainage ditch. They burst out into the open, gulping fresh air, sirens wailing in the distance. Elena sat at the kitchen table, staring at the open laptop. Every folder Jessie had copied was open. Names, transactions, GPS, logs, offshore accounts. Crimes that could bury half the board of Argent Corp and even implicate key government officials. Jameson looked up from the printouts, jaw clenched. This is treason." "It's war," Elena corrected. Just then, the door flew open. Caleb and Jessie stormed in, dragging a zip-tied and bloodied Barrett. "Don't untie him," Caleb said coldly. "He doesn't get to talk anymore." Barrett sneered. "You won't make it out of this alive." "We already have," Elena said, standing. "We've sent copies to every major journalist in the state. Interpol's getting a package next." Jessie grinned. "Sleep tight, Colonel." Caleb stepped forward, facing Barrett eye to eye. "You buried me, burned my records. Let my team die. But I clawed out of the grave you made, and now your empire's crumbling." Barrett just laughed. "You think the people who run this machine will let you live?" Caleb looked at Elena, then at his father. "That's the difference," he said. "I'm not alone anymore." The headlines were everywhere. Explosive leak reveals global arms, smuggling ring. Whistleblower risen from the dead, exposes military-industrial scandal. Argent Corp CEO arrested in federal sting. The footage of Barrett being escorted in cuffs aired on every major network. Elena sat beside Caleb on the farmhouse porch, coffee mugs in hand. The sunrise stretched across the fields like a promise, quiet Steady. Does it feel real yet? She asked. Caleb shook his head. Not yet. Maybe not ever. You saved lives, Caleb. I just finished what they started. She reached out, her fingers brushing his. You still have a life to live. He turned to her. Is there still room in it for me? Tears welled in her eyes. She nodded. I never buried you, she whispered. Just the pain. They sat in silence, watching the sun rise on a new day, one free of ghosts, lies, and shadows. But far off, across the field, a black drone hovered, silent, watching. The past was over, but the war for truth was just beginning. Caleb stared at the sealed envelope in his hand. The Department of Defense had sent it with a polite letter, an invitation to testify before a congressional oversight committee. They want you to clean up their mess publicly, Elena said, her arms crossed as she leaned against the doorframe. You sure you're ready for that? Caleb nodded slowly. I didn't come back just to bury Barrett. I came back for the truth. Jessie entered the room, holding her tablet. Then you better pack. They want you in D.C. by Friday, and you should see this. She handed him the device. On the screen, a viral video of Caleb's press conference the week before. His measured voice telling the world about Barrett's crimes had resonated globally. Soldiers, veterans, whistleblowers, survivors, all rallying. Caleb felt the weight of their stories pressing on his shoulders. We need to make this permanent, Jessie said. A foundation, a network, something real. Caleb looked at his family, the one he had left, and the one he had chosen. Then let's do it. The hearing chamber was packed. Journalists, politicians, protesters, and cameras. Caleb stood at the center of it all, under oath. Senator Marlowe leaned forward. Mr. Whitaker, do you have any evidence that the operations Colonel Barrett ran had approval from higher up? Caleb didn't flinch. Yes, emails, wire transfers, and redacted communications between Barrett and 2 members of the Defense Appropriations Committee. Names have been submitted to federal investigators. Gasps, flashes. The senator nodded gravely. You're risking your life by coming forward. I already risked it once, Caleb said. This time it's for something that matters. Back at the hotel, Caleb poured a drink. Exhaustion clung to him like fog. Elena came in, her expression tight. There's been a breach, she said. Our servers. Someone tried to wipe the archive. Who? We don't know yet. But they were inside our system for 11 minutes before we shut them out. Jessie appeared behind her. And Caleb, they were searching for something called Directive Eclipse. He froze. What the hell is Directive Eclipse? Elena asked. Caleb looked at them both. It's worse than we thought. Barrett wasn't the top of the food chain. Rain slammed against the windshield as Caleb and Elena drove through rural Maryland. Jessie's voice crackled through the secure line. The encrypted files we recovered from the breach, they're not just about Barrett. Directive Eclipse dates back nearly 15 years. Elena glanced at Caleb. That's before you were deployed. Exactly, Caleb muttered. This goes deeper, Jessie continued. There's mention of a shadow group embedded within the military-industrial complex. They're not loyal to any administration. They fund black ops, silence dissent, manipulate conflicts to control defense budgets. Caleb's knuckles tightened on the steering wheel. And Barrett was just their errand boy. Correct, Jessie replied. And now that you've exposed him, they'll come for you next. A low-lit room inside a brownstone near DuPont Circle. Caleb, Elena, Jessie, and 2 trusted members of Congress sat in silence as Caleb laid out the evidence. Encrypted documents. Logs of secret transfers. Operation code names. All are linked to the Directive Eclipse. Senator Marlowe leaned forward, whispering, If this becomes public, it'll ignite a constitutional crisis. Then it should, Elena said coldly. They've buried hundreds of soldiers to protect. Profits. Jessie placed a folder on the table. There's one more name. Colonel Jansen. He's alive. And he helped write Eclipse. Caleb narrowed his eyes. Where is he? Alaska. Off-grid. Witness protection. The air was sharp with pine and sea salt. Caleb stood on a remote cliff, staring at a log cabin in the distance. No electricity, no vehicles, just isolation. Inside the cabin, Colonel Jansen looked up, startled, a long gray beard and heavy eyes. You shouldn't have found me. I didn't come for revenge, Caleb said, stepping inside. I came for the truth. Jansen exhaled. We thought we were saving the country, but Eclipse, it became something else. We created a monster, one we couldn't control. Caleb handed him a sat phone, then helped me kill it. The second hearing was broadcast live. Colonel Jansen's testimony stunned the nation. Names, dates, locations, death counts, bribes. He didn't flinch as he revealed the architecture of Directive Eclipse, a cabal that spanned lobbyists, contractors, rogue generals, and politicians. Reporters wept. Senators shouted. Americans watched in disbelief. And through it all, Caleb sat silently beside Jansen, knowing this was just the beginning. A small crowd gathered. Not for a funeral, but a tribute. Names of whistleblowers, truth-tellers, and the fallen were read, aloud. Caleb spoke last. We were taught to fight for our country, but sometimes that means fighting the lies it tells itself. He looked at Elena, at Jesse, at the journalists and survivors in attendance. The return wasn't just mine. It belongs to everyone who came back haunted, who came back changed, who refused to stay silent. This is for them. A memorial stood in downtown D.C. now, not of generals or victories, but of truth. Caleb stood beneath it with Elena and Jesse. Children passed by, tourists read plaques, a new generation learned what had been hidden. Jesse nudged him. We still get threats. You know, Caleb smiled slightly. Let them come. We're not hiding anymore. The sun glinted off the stone behind them, where etched in steel were the final words of Caleb's testimony. The greatest betrayal is not by the enemy in front of you, but by the command behind you. They walked away together, not just survivors, but changemakers, and in their footsteps, others began to follow.